YouTube, this is Kier. I wanted to kind of make a video about when I first started out as a witch and coming out of the broom closet and all that kind of stuff, because some of my favorite videos from witches on YouTube are videos of witches just talking about starting out. I find it very, very interesting to see the different points of view out there that, you know, depending on when you first got into the craft and where you live, how people first started out and how people first approached the whole telling people that they were a witch thing. So I wanted to kind of make a video like that too. And let me be super clear, there are witches on YouTube who have far more experience in witchcraft than I do. They have been in this game a lot longer than I have. And they're actually some of my favorites just because I started out solitary. I was never in a coven. I've never been in a coven, anything like that. And I just love to hear how people who started out in the 60s, 70s, early 80s found other witches, how they were taught, that sort of thing. My stuff won't nearly be that interesting. But I became a witch super fucking young. I was 11 years old, which if I were a different kind of kid, I would say that that was maybe not the best idea. Just because, you know, when you're a kid and when you're a teenager, early teenager, even late teens, your hormones are all over the fucking place. And, you know, you might meet Bob down the street and you want Bob down the street, but Bob down the street has a girlfriend, and if you have access to magic and you're too young to fully comprehend the consequences, you might think it's perfectly cool to do your spell and get Bob down the street away from his girlfriend. Not that personally for me, my ethic code, I don't do things like that. I don't believe in doing things like that. If you do, that's fine for you. It's up to all of us to make our own code of ethics. It's just for me personally, I would kind of consider that sort of stuff before I taught somebody young in the craft. But for me, my mom was a witch at the time, and I was actually Pentecostal from the time I was about 5, I want to say, until I was about 9.5 years old. I had such a hunger for the connection between me and something bigger than myself, something spiritually fulfilling. Well, small town Ohio, the only thing that was available and really in my face at that time was Christianity. By the time my mom started getting into witchcraft, and I honestly don't even know who, like, brought it up or how she found out about it. And I know with, like, YouTube and Facebook and the internet, people would be like, what do you mean find out about it? She searched. But it wasn't that way. And she became a witch around 93, 94, so the early 90s. You couldn't just, you know, find things that easily. I don't know if I ever asked her. I don't remember ever talking to her about that. But by the time my mom got into witchcraft, I was already Pentecostal. I tried to believe, I guess I should say, what I was told. And there was this huge scare in my church about my hometown in the night. I say scare in my church and about witchcraft, and the people that I went to church with were just convinced that my hometown, small little town in Ohio, was full of witches and devil worshippers, which of course in their eyes was one and the same, and that's what I was being taught. So by the time my mom started getting into it and started saying, hey, I'm a witch, I'm going, well, you're going to hell. There was no other possibility in my mind. At the same time, I wanted to believe everything I was being told because Mom, of course, did not sit there. She just didn't talk to me about her belief system and all that. And I had been indoctrinated in this mindset for so long, and I felt like all the doubt that I had, and I had a lot of doubt, there was a lot of shit that they tried to teach me that I just did not agree with. But I felt like that meant there was something wrong with me, not the teachings. I remember one thing in particular, I can't remember what brought it up, But I went to church twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday. So I did Sunday school in the mornings on Sunday, and then I would go back for the evening service, which was all adults, or all the main service. And then on Wednesdays, it was the same thing. It was all the main service. So I was sitting there. It was either a Sunday night or a Wednesday evening, and I was listening to the preacher talk, and he was talking about all of us being born with sin. That newborns were, you know, full of sin because they hadn't been baptized yet. And I'm going, that doesn't fucking make sense. Because to me, a baby, a newborn, has always been one of the most innocent things you'll ever see. So, but again, I thought that meant there was something wrong with me. But I heard enough of the shit until I just couldn't stomach it anymore. And I was going, well, if I go to hell, I go to hell, whatever. The thing that now makes no sense to me about my logic at that time was that I've always believed in reincarnation. That's one of those things that I knew what I knew. I knew what I experienced. I knew the things I told my mother from a very young age. I knew what I knew. I don't know how I reckoned it out in my mind to believe in reincarnation and heaven and hell. I think hell was just such a scary concept, I couldn't help but believe in it. I don't know. But, my first experiences with the craft was because I was bored. I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and I had run out of books to read. I was an avid reader, I still am. And I went in my mom's room and I grabbed up Scott Cunningham's book. I want to say it was Solitary Witch, I believe, is the title of it. That's what we always called it. I think that's the title of it. But I grabbed it up and I started reading it, and everything in that book made sense with everything I believed on my own. It was like an eye-opener. It was like there isn't anything wrong with me, I just was on the wrong path. So I started kind of reading the rest of her books in secret. I didn't know how she would feel about it because I didn't know. But I would snatch her books, and I would read them, and each time I read another book, there was more and more with it that resonated with me. And that went on for a few months, and then finally I talked to her about it, and she was dead set against me learning anything pertaining to the craft, because we were from small town Ohio, and in the 90s there was a big deal with a CPS getting involved in families where there was witchcraft and Wicca. They would actually take people's fucking kids away for it. So my mom was very, very afraid of people finding out she was a witch, let alone of me becoming a witch and people finding out about that. So the compromise we eventually settled on was, you can study, you can learn, you can, if this is the path for you, pursue it, but do not fucking tell anybody you're a witch, because they could take you away from it. That was that. So I studied in secret. I didn't tell anybody at all. I went into 6th grade and I was a little on the goth side. For one, I'm naturally pale. I have naturally dark brown hair, although you really can't tell it because it's starting to turn white. But I naturally had what people referred to as the goth look. It wasn't something I did on purpose, but then I got pissed off at everybody's attitude toward it, so I started wearing the black lipstick. I had a long black trench coat that I still have and love, and I did all that. Plus I listened to Marilyn Manson. I didn't listen to Marilyn Manson as a statement. I listened to Marilyn Manson because I had a lot of problems, and that music helped me through it. Nobody understood that. But when I was asked, you know, are you a fucking devil worshiper, which happened almost on a weekly basis, just based on what I wore and what I listened to, I would tell everybody, no, I'm an atheist, because I would not admit to or claim that I believed something I didn't believe in, but at the same time I couldn't tell the truth. So it's so fucked up, I think, to this day, that it was preferable to people at that time for somebody to have no believe in anything than for somebody to be a witch. Nothing against atheists. If that's how you feel about it, that's how you feel about it, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I'm just saying, I always found that kind of weird. But that's what I did. And then in 7th grade, when I was 12, 13, around that area, I moved in with my grandmother, and I went to school where she lived, which was an even smaller town. But my attitude about shit had changed. I went through so much hell in 6th grade in my hometown that by the time I got to this new school, I was like, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about anything. So when I was asked, are you a saint worshiper, blah, 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 no, I'm a witch, I don't believe in the devil. I cleared that one up real quick. Nothing against saint worshippers, it's just I'm not one. So I actually, I really didn't alienate anybody with that. Let me back up. Prior to me moving in with my grandmother, when we were first talking about it, I had held the secret of my belief system for a year at this time. I was fucking terrified of telling my grandmother. That was, like, when I thought about it getting out to people, my biggest fear was telling my grandmother and having her disown me. So I knew I was getting ready to move in with her. We were talking about it, making our plans, whatever. And at that point, my mother had moved down on the Ohio River, which was 2 hours away. And Grandma was taking me back there because, like I said, we were in the, we were making the plans for me to move in, but it hadn't happened yet. And I don't remember why I picked that moment. I don't remember why. But I was holding on to it, and I wanted to tell her so bad. And finally, she stopped at a red light, and I just looked at her, and I was shaking. I was physically fucking shaking. I was such a wreck. And I said, Grandma, I have something to tell you, and it's pretty big, and you're probably going to be pissed off. And she said, well, whatever it is, we'll work through it. Whatever it is, just tell me. And I said, I'm a witch. And she fucking busted out laughing. And she looked me dead in the eye, and she said, no, you're not. And I said, no, I am. This is my path. I'm a witch. And she said, no, you're not, and I don't want to fucking hear any more about it. My grandmother is actually a very good person. I don't want to make it sound like, she's this evil bitch or anything. She's not. She's my touchstone. She's my rock. But that was her reaction for that. I wasn't really all that concerned with her reaction, honestly. I just wanted her to know she didn't disown me. She still was cool with me moving in, so as far as I was concerned, that was settled. I put it out there. I had to practice in secret. I was not allowed to put up an altar or anything like that, which no matter, I've always felt a strong connection to worshiping at an altar. I mean, I can go without an altar. I have been through periods where I had to go without an altar because I either didn't have the space, I was staying with somebody, something like that, or, it just wasn't accepted with the people that I was around, and I was younger and paid attention to shit like that, which I wouldn't do now. But, whatever, I had to keep my altar in secret in my closet, and it was not a big closet at all, and there were fucking clothes all over the place, but that was how I was able to hide it. I kept it in my closet, and then I would wait until she went to sleep. She knew I loved candles, scented candles especially, so I could get away with her smelling the candles burning and thinking nothing of that. I can't remember. I know I burned incense, like I had burned incense before that. I can't remember if I did a lot of that at that time. Probably not, because I didn't really have access to good incense, just that really smelly cheap shit from the dollar store, and I don't really care for that. But I did burn my candles, and I did say my prayers, and I did, celebrate the Sabbaths the best that I could, and celebrate the moon cycles the best that I could. They were very on-the-fly kind of rituals, very simplistic, but they got me where I wanted to be in terms of me feeling like I honored the land and the deities and everything I was trying to do. Didn't really do spells at that time. I had started a Book of Shadows in the sense that I had started writing stuff down like notes as soon as I started learning, because there was just shit that I wanted to make sure I remembered. I didn't really get an actual book until I was 14, and I used that for my main Book of Shadows for a long time, and then I have like a serious thing about organization. So I ended up putting my spells, my prayers, my information for the Sabbaths, all of that, in a binder so I could better organize it, and now I use my old book that I've had forever that's falling the fuck apart to record, like when I do my rituals and shit like that, I write about it in there. But back to the whole school thing. in 7th grade, if you were my friend and you asked, I told you I'm a witch. I don't know why, I didn't really consider the whole being taken away thing like I did before. I mean, like I said, this was an even smaller, more narrow-minded town with less diversity, even than my hometown, which is sad. But, I just didn't give a damn, I guess. I really went into that school with like a chip on my shoulder. By the end of the year, everything was great. I had a lot of friends and all that. But, that was sort of my reason, I guess you could say, for coming out in a larger way. But it still was something that, for the most part, I kept secret unless you were a friend or you were close to me. And it's still something that I don't go around like, hey, I'm a witch. I have no, it's cool if you do that, and if you are more open. I actually wish I could be that way, and I've been working on it, because there was just such a feeling of having to hide who I was for so fucking long. I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I didn't want to bring shit on my family for who I was. There were all of these problems mainly because of the time period and because of where I was. I know we still have a long way to go when it comes to our religious freedom, but believe it or not, we actually have, I think, come a long way since 1998. But, in 2006, I got my MySpace, which was like my first introduction to social media. I had seen chat rooms and been in chat rooms and that kind of thing, but it really didn't hold my interest so much. I would go in, and I did meet a few really nice witches during my chat room experience. They weren't people I really seriously kept in contact with or anything like that, but they were nice to chat with. But MySpace was really my first introduction to social media. And about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months after I got my profile, I found a picture on PhotoBucket, and it was a very beautiful pinnacle. It was a drawing, but the sides to it were made out of what looked like broomsticks, and it had roses on it and stuff. It was very, very pretty. And I really wanted to put it on my main page on my MySpace. But it took me about 4 days of deliberation to get the fucking balls up to do it, because I was sitting there like, oh my god, everybody who sees my profile will now know that I'm a witch. And it will be right there. It won't be like they have to scroll down to see my religious preference. It will be right there in their face. I don't know what the hell I thought was going to happen. I mean, at that time, I was working as a cashier at a grocery store, and I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but it was just that ingrained fear, I think, that I had from when I first started out. Eventually, I put the picture up, and then I put a few more up, and when I got to Facebook, I was a little more open about it. Actually, in all honesty, I can really thank social media for making me as open as I am. If it hadn't been for that MySpace experience, I probably would not be here talking to you about witchcraft right now. But it opened me up. Another really big moment for me in terms of my religion and how, I don't want to say popularized, because the true version of witchcraft and all that sort of thing, not the shit that you see on TV, is really not popularized at all, but of it becoming more well-known and accepted, I guess, was when I got on YouTube. This would have been around early 2011, I want to say, and just for fun, I typed in Wiccan chants. And I was completely amazed that here were all of these legitimate, real chants from my religion. Like, that was amazing to me. That was a wow kind of moment, because when I first became a witch, I would have never dreamed I would ever see anything like that on a site as public as this. So it's just things that maybe witches coming up now probably wouldn't understand as well. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure there's still witches out there who have to deal with bullshit because of who they are, or they're afraid to tell anyone who they are, because prejudice absolutely still exists. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Like, how many witchy YouTubers out there get harassed by people of other faith on a regular basis in their comments? That's a perfect example of the fact that the prejudice hasn't gone away. But I was proud in that moment that there were chants from my religion on YouTube. It was a, wow, look how far we've come kind of thing. And again, people on here who have been witches for 30 or 40 years are probably going to understand that far better than me. But as far as teachers, I'm sorry, I keep fucking with my hair. It's just all up in my face tonight. As far as teachers go, I really only in the flesh had one, and I had her for a very brief time because she ended up leaving state. I am friends with her on Facebook. I do thankfully get to talk to her on a regular basis, but there was about 8 years, I want to say, that I did not have any contact with her at all. I love her very, very much, and she has been a witch for, I want to say, about 40 years. She came up in that time period where there really weren't books, and you pretty much learned from covens and that sort of thing. She's really awesome. She really is. And she really hammered home, I think because I was so young, the two things that she really hammered home to me was protection and learning to protect myself and that sort of thing. And the witch's pyramid, we covered that a lot. And oh my goodness, I'm blanking out. I'm sorry, I do this from time to time. I completely fucking blank out. Personal responsibility and accountability when it came to magic and what I did as a witch. She was very much about letting me know, you know, if you hurt someone for the sake of fucking hurting them just because you can and you can get away with it, you're probably not going to walk away from that unscathed. That's going to come back on you. But I think that she also did a good job of kind of telling me, you know, do no harm but take no shit. Because she told me over and over again that, you know, it's perfectly acceptable to send back the negativity. It's perfectly acceptable to not take shit from people. You don't have to deal with somebody attacking you just because you don't want to break the witch's reed. So, you know, she kind of handled that balance well. And like I said, I think she hammered that home so well to me and so often to me because I was 11 years old. You know, that's really young. And a lot of 11-year-olds in all sorts of circumstances don't really think about the consequences of the shit that they do. And, you know, I had instances like that. I'm sure all of you did too. I'm sure you maybe, like, climbed a tree without ever once thinking, hey, I might fall out of this motherfucker and break my neck. It's what we do when we're kids. We just do shit. But, because of her, though, and I love you. If you're watching this, I love you. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know how she'd feel about that. But she knows who she is. I love you, and I'm not criticizing the way you taught me, but I do feel like because of her hammering that into my head so much, I am just now getting to a point where I am comfortable doing shit beyond reversals. Now, I'm not saying that I go out and I intentionally fuck people up. I have my own, you know, set of standards on what I will and will not do. Doesn't mean that needs to be your set. Doesn't mean that I feel like you're wrong for doing your practice. That's the whole point of witchcraft. You do things the way you feel comfortable and the way you see fit. But for me personally, I have pretty hard morals when it comes to that. And I'm starting to get to a point in my life where I feel like I maybe want to reinvestigate that. I've actually been looking at some YouTube channels of some witches who kind of maybe walk a different path than me in terms of how they approach that, because I do kind of want to reinvestigate that. That's another thing. If you are a new witch out there and you are wondering, you know, or you're looking at somebody and you're thinking, man, they fucking know it all. When you are a witch, I mean, just like anything else in life, you never have it all figured out. Every fucking day there is something new to learn. There is something that you thought you knew that maybe you reinvestigate and you go, I've kind of changed my mind on that. I kind of like to try a different way. Whether that be in the way that you do rituals, or the way that you do spells, or your ethical, moral code, whatever it is. It's always a fucking learning process, just like life. It never stops. You will never be the witch that knows it all, nor does such a witch exist. If somebody tells you, hey, I am a witch who knows it all, I've seen it all, I've done it all, they're probably full of shit. It's like seeing a unicorn. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about this stuff because I know that there are a lot of new witches on YouTube that maybe might be struggling with how to tell people. And that's another thing. Nobody has the same set of circumstances when it comes to telling people about their path. Some people may have families that will accept it more than others. Some people may have partners that will accept it more than others. Some people may have, you know, bosses and employers who accept it more than others. Because, let's be honest, people do get fired for being witches. People do lose contact with their loved ones because their loved ones find out and they're like, you know what, fuck you. You worship Satan and we want no part of that. I mean, that shit does happen. So when it comes to when to come out of the broom closet, whether or not to come out of the broom closet, my theory is to each their own. You decide when that is right for you and how to approach the situation. I've heard people bash people in the past for not being out of the broom closet. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right because you never know what road that person is walking down and their reasons for keeping it secret. It's not necessarily that they are ashamed of it. That's not the only reason to keep something private. There are a variety of reasons that somebody may not feel comfortable doing that. So if you're new to this and you feel bad because you're still in the broom closet, don't. That's on you to decide when to come out with it, if you come out with it. Which I think that probably most new witches will, if they haven't already, come out at some point. Hopefully. I hope that we've gotten to a point where that's true in our society. But if you don't ever come out, if you keep it private for the rest of your life, honey, that is your choice. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about my own personal beginnings and how I approached that situation, I guess. Brightest blessings to all of you. I hope that you all have a beautiful week and that you all remember to smile. Goodbye.